kind of market or ecosystem is there in China when it's come to cloud native technologies?
This is a huge, one of the world's largest, fastest growing economies, right? You have over 1 billion people here. If you're going to build services and applications that scale to handle that many people, you're going to discover cloud native faster than than other things.
Yeah.
So, just today we gave an award to JD.com, who is one of the largest e-commerce companies in China. They have a ginormous bare metal Kubernetes cluster set up, a huge storage setup with a Vitesse project that we have in CNCF that was kind of born from YouTube. But there's been early adoption of these technologies here for quite a while. The challenge really is it's very easy to consume the technology, but a little bit more difficult to contribute back upstream due to language, time zone type barriers. I've attended a couple calls this week back home. 12:30 a.m. is a very painful time to attend a conference call.
And when you talk about big scale, look at Tencent, they own WeChat.
Yep.
They're serving billion people. Alibaba,
Yeah.
all those.
OFO, you have like hundreds of millions of bicycles that you manage.
So we should not even talking about scale when it comes to China.
Yeah, China scale is no joke.
We need a new definition of what scale means when you talk about China.
Yeah, I absolutely agree with that.
So I was curious, why did you choose Shanghai?
Well, we know we wanted to do an event in China. Our membership from the Chinese part of the world was growing, and there was a sentiment that it's about time we do a KubeCon. We would love to have you. And so we're trying to evaluate some cities. The Linux Foundation has done open source summits in Beijing before. We've done smaller events in Shanghai, and eventually we just decided to choose Shanghai because it's a very kind of, cosmopolitan blend of East and West type city. And, we thought it would be great to also attract international people here. And we're actually excited it worked out because we sold out. We have about close to 2,600 attendees, and about 500 of them came from international markets. And the rest, 2,000 or so came from China, which is a great mix. We did not expect that, really. We wanted that to happen, but we didn't expect it to actually happen because it is a long flight to China.
I'm sad that, I'm leaving tomorrow because I was nervous and now I feel so good.
Relax. Well, we're going to be back here in 6-7 months.
Yeah.
So it's very exciting.
Should I just stay here? I have 10 years visa, so I can just stay here.
Exactly.
And we'll see you again.
Yes, yeah. You need one of those 10-year visas. Those are the best.
Yeah. So let's just move out of China now.
Sure.
Look at the CNCF in general. I think we met like 6 months ago at previous KubeCon. So how much things have changed so far? Can you talk about the growth of CNCF for Kubernetes?
It's incredible. Like, you look at our organization, CNCF from just a membership perspective, we recently broke 333 members, which is the largest sub-foundation in the Linux Foundation in terms of membership. So we recently broke 70 end users, which is or end user members, which is also the largest in the Linux Foundation. So we've just had an incredible growth, and it continues to grow as an organization. It's interesting to kind of see, everything generally has, like any product or technology, there's always a peak at things, right? You kind of enter that like where, you've hit the total addressable market size, but, CNCF continues to grow because I think cloud native technology in general you're having this trend where companies need to essentially run their own infrastructure or modernize their own infrastructure. And, you're a company like, Caterpillar, or today in the keynotes, we saw like the, Chinese industrial, electricity grid, all these folks are essentially starting to use cloud native technology because they need to modernize. And, they join CNCF to learn from our community, attend our events, and so on. So it's just crazy that, we're, as an organization, we're necessarily no longer limited to just kind of the internet scale companies and some of the vendors in this space. The end users are basically almost encompassing any company that essentially is becoming a software company. It's quite incredible.
Right. But when we look at, the adoption of cloud native technology, especially Kubernetes, we have also seen a lot of consolidation happening, whether it's Red Hat, IBM, Heptio.
Heptio just recently.
Yeah.
Love Craig and Joe. Great folks.
Yeah. So as the adoption of Kubernetes is increasing, it's also leading to some new challenges.
Correct.
What are those?
Part of it is just, everything moves very fast, right? So Kubernetes, like clockwork, basically releases every few months. We update all of our certification, training material, and so on. And just keeping up at that pace is very difficult. And now, as a technology, that Kubernetes has kind of become mature, and like kind of Janet poked at her keynote. It's like Kubernetes is getting boring, but it's still moving very fast, and it's getting boring because it's starting to get adopted by a lot of companies. But traditionally, a lot of these companies have very different expectations of software. They generally are used to paying vendors to do long-term maintenance and support. Like, we don't want to move to the latest version of Kubernetes every quarter. So the community is coming up with these challenges of how to deal with a traditional set of expectations, but also keep the software constantly moving. What I think you'll see is kind of what happened with Linux, where you kind of had this explosion of distributions to suit every need, and then eventually you had some coalescing of vendors, right? Folks like Red Hat, Canonical, SUSE, all have like very ironclad, distributions that they offer support and so on. This type of thing will eventually happen. Well, I mean, it is already happening in Kubernetes, where you'll probably have a smaller set of folks that things are consolidated over time. And of course, the bigger established players, they're buying some of these startups. So what's a little bit different with Kubernetes is there are cloud-based offerings. Linux is just generally it's an operating system. It has a different scope of profile than Kubernetes. So.
That's true. Now let's scale back to China. What?
No, it's like China's it's been an adventure for me, because 6 times in the last 12 months, and it's a learning experience every time. So we're meeting new members and so on, and literally last time I was here, like buildings were like brand new buildings have popped up. So it's just crazy.
They just popped up between your trip?
Well, so funny. The event. So there's a little mall next door to this. About a few months ago, that was not even finished. Like it was kind of in construction phases, and you go there and it's like completely. So the pace of just change and innovation is incredible in China.
I remember last KubeCon there was a keynote, and I think it was Weaveworks CTO. He was talking about the building will pop up in like 48 days or something like that.
It's impressive.
It's impressive. And I've seen some video also where they take the whole flyover out at night, and by the morning it's ready.
Yep, it's impressive. Yeah, it reflects on kind of the goals of the country. They're modernizing, they're moving fast. A lot of their organizations are taking advantage of cloud native software, and it's China right now makes up about 11% of our membership. I expect that number to double before the end of next year easily. So we have a team that we've invested here that we're continuing to grow. We're learning the wonderful quirks of how to support a community here when there's certain issues of if you host containers in certain registries that are banned in China, it just makes that getting started experience. So we're learning and trying to build things to make it as easy as possible to use CNCF and cloud native projects all over the world. So
right. So when you talk about China, what other CNCF hosted cloud native projects that are being used here?
I mean, basically everyone. Obviously the popular one, like Kubernetes, obviously, right? But things like Harbor, which just recently came into the CNCF as an incubating project, is it's a container registry, or they like to affectionately call themselves a cloud native registry, because they support things more than containers. They support Helm charts, which is another CNCF project that has a significant amount of adoption out here. We have 3 projects in CNCF that were actually born in China, that actually were developed and are brought into the CNCF ecosystem and being used everywhere, which I think is a trend you will continue to see, because I have a personal thesis that, back to our earlier point, is there's like internet scale, web scale, and there's like China scale, where to support things like your OFO and you're managing hundreds of millions of bikes, or your Alibaba and you're supporting like the Singles Day and all the crazy transactions, which is more than Amazon does, and on Black Friday by a significant number. You have to build software in a very unique way to handle those that workloads. amount. And so I think what you'll see is a continuing trend of Chinese companies sharing and open sourcing projects that help this, and these lessons also being used by the rest of the world. Kind of how you look at CNCF and cloud native technology, a lot of those were born from the problems that the internet scale giants had, like Google and so on. So I think you'll start seeing kind of the reverse, where some of the China scale companies are going to continue to start sharing. And as an organization, I'm really proud of being able to kind of be in between and help bridge kind of the lessons of things that are happening in China and the rest of the world.
I've heard that you have some objection to the term donation. In some cases, I would agree with you. So why you don't like when companies said that we donated XYZ technology to CNCF?
Donations, everyone should donate more money to charities, but to me, the word donation implies you're kind of a one-way transaction. You donate something to a charity, and that's basically it. You may come back and do it again once a year or something. To me, contribution implies an active thing. Like, you contribute the project, you're not intending to donate it and like throw it away, right? This is a active thing that you continue to commit to working on the project and building and sustaining a community. So it's a bit of a personal pet peeve, because there's been plenty of times in open source where companies donate a project or throw it over the wall and just leave it alone. So for me, contribute implies an active thing and an intention to take care and grow the project.
Also, if you look at traditional definition of donation, it's this charity. It makes you feel good. You did something, so that you get heaven when you die or whatever. So whether it's the case of you're right. There's sometimes they just throw the project in, but you actually contribute a product. Or project because you want to build an ecosystem around it. And it's a business goal,
And it's in your best interest to do so. It is a business goal. You're doing it not only because it's good for the world. Maybe you want to show off what you've done. Is you're doing it because it actually benefits your business. You want to build that community and so on. So that's kind of why it's my pet peeve, because I think in open source, if you simply just like donate or throw something over the wall, that's not really going to help that many people. If you actually go step up and contribute and build a community around this project you contribute, it actually benefits you a lot more as an organization, and it benefits everyone else.
So now, since we came down to your pet peeves, let's talk about what do you do in your free time, if you have any free time?
It's, like I mentioned, it's been a lot of travel this year to kind of grow CNCF, being basically one of the fastest growing open source foundations of all time. For fun, since I'm on the road a lot, I basically, every kind of new city or city I go to, I always find ways to go kind of running and explore the local culture. So like a pair of running shoes, very easy to pack. Just go jump on a trail as soon as you land. I also kind of like doing, embracing local cultures, learning about their food. So in every kind of new city, I do like usually a food or bike tour and kind of meet with locals that way. So that's kind of how I basically keep sane these days with being on the road a lot. So a lot of exercise by running and exploring cities and learning more about a culture through its food and kind of city life.
So you are one of those lucky people where you don't have to leave your hobby at home. You bring your hobby with you.
No, exactly. I mean, I also do like cycling, but it is not ideal to pack a bicycle with you
That's true.
all the time. But in China, at least it's very easy because you have like bike sharing everywhere. So it's quite
Have you
nice.
done any biking
yes,
here?
Ofo, there's an app called well, China has multiple, of course you have multiple hundreds of millions of bicycle
millions of billions
sharing companies. Yeah, exactly. And so Ofo is one I like because Ofo is global. So like there's Ofos all over the world, and the app actually works in China, and you could take advantage of it versus being locked out through the mobile payment system here.
Yeah. Awesome, Chris. Thanks for talking to me today. And of course, we'll see you again in Seattle.
Seattle. We would love to actually see you. Hopefully you bought a ticket because we just sold out today.
Yes, the tickets are bought and everything is done. I hope so. I have the mail of confirmation, so
I think you're good. If not, I'll see what I can do for you.
But I will always get a back door, right?
Yes,
somehow. I won't take a seat. I'll just stand in the back. Just give me.
It'll be good. No, we're excited. It's what's funny about these events is it's very difficult to plan these things because KubeCon Seattle was literally planned a little over 2.5 years ago in terms of trying to estimate how many people will attend and so on. So a lot of these things, a lot of people don't realize we're actually already planning for 2020 events, and it's very difficult to estimate how well the event will grow,
Yeah.
what macroeconomic conditions, and so will go on. But we put on these events because the community finds it extremely valuable to learn from each other, and so on. So I think events are basically kind of like a forcing function for people to get together, ship releases. Not a fan of I may not be the biggest fan of conference-driven development, but it is a thing. Like people go and strive to like go ship things at these things. So
It's not just about shipping. It's also about the trust that you build when you see somebody, when you share a drink, versus just looking at a handle or GitHub page. So there's, you cannot compare it.
Exactly. Almost all open source projects are developed in a distributed way where people may have not ever met each other face to face. And this is why the CNCF and the Linux Foundation continues to invest in events. Like the Linux Foundation, we hosted 35,000 people last year in all the different events that we do around the world. So it's quite phenomenal.
And it's global phenomena, so it's
which is wild.
The crowd is very diverse. It's like, it's incredible.
That's why we'll be back in China again next year, and actually more cities next year, because we're launching a new event type program where we have 3 big events a year for CNCF. The 3 KubeCons: North America, North America, Europe, and China. And we've had a lot of demand from the community to say, like, I want a KubeCon in Bangalore. I want a KubeCon in Sao Paulo. I want a KubeCon in my city, Helsinki. And we're like, well, that's not sustainable. So we're actually going to be arming the community with its ability to do its own Kubernetes and cloud native days. So we're actually doing the first Kubernetes day in Bangalore in March of next year as kind of a pilot. And our goal is basically to support and scale our community with smaller, more regional focused events that we all can't always get to.
Awesome.
Cool.
I sprinkle the whole world with KubeCons.
There'll be cloud native days, and there will only be 3 KubeCons a year, but cloud native days and Kubernetes days will be sprinkled all over the world.
Awesome. Thank you so much.
Cool. Thanks, Abdul.